Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at Mucedorus, a hugely popular play from originally around 1590-ish. 1991. Some people put it a little bit earlier, but it is a play that has a very long publishing history at the very least. It manages to clock in 17 editions from 1598 until the middle of the 17th century. So it does incredibly well. It is we don't know which company it originates with, but it is later appropriated by the King's Men and goes through all sorts of interesting changes and adjustments. I'm really quite looking forward to this. Trigger warnings. There is some violence coming up. There may be hints of sexual violence. I don't know how explicit that may or may not occur, and may not be in this particular session, but I'm flagging it up just in case. Otherwise, it is a play that we actually have a doubling chart for it, but sadly we have too few people in this session to actually do that kind of doubling. So we have a slightly more extreme and chaotic doubling with at least one of us sharing the same part very briefly. So today, reading the prologue and the clown Mouse is...
Hello, my name is Sascha Cooper and I'm a professional actress, performer, director and writer from Brighton in the UK.
And reading comedy, Segasto and the Messenger today is...
I'm Eric, and as you can see, I was totally unprepared for that, but yeah, that's about it.
And reading Envy and Amadine today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk in the UK.
Today reading Anselmo, Collen, Bremo and Ariena is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, and I'm a historian and I'm in Yorkshire.
And reading King Mucedorus, or just Mucedorus perhaps, yes, Prince at the moment, Prince Mucedorus, why would I call him a king? But also reading a king today is...
Alexandra, and I'm already confused.
And Alexandra is confused because I am reading Tremelio, but I will also be very briefly reading Mucedorus for one scene because the doubling doesn't actually work. So that's we're already starting on the back foot here, but hopefully we'll get on track as we go into the prologue to this particular version of the text. So prologue away, please.
Most sacred majesty, whose great deserts thy subject England, nay, the world admires, which heaven grants still increase. Oh, may your praise multiplying with your hours, your fame still raise. Embrace your counsel, love with faith them guide, that both at one bench by each other's side. So may your life pass on, and run so even, that your firm zeal plant, you throne in heaven, where smiling angels shall your guardians be. From blemished traitors, stained with perjury, and as the night's inferior to the day, so be all earthly regions to your sway. Be as the sun today, the day tonight. For from your beams Europe shall borrow light. Mirth drown your bosom, fair delight your mind, and may our pastime your contentment find.
So what we have here is a prologue specifically to Arslick the king at that time being James, and so this is a later addition to the text, and is quite ephemeral. I don't think there's any particular reason why a modern production would use this particular prologue, but it is interesting nevertheless. Any thoughts about that? As I called it arse-licking, but you know, he's a king. It's sort of expected. Any thoughts?
Doesn't seem over the top for the period.
Mm.
I mean, we've seen...
Yeah, go on.
We've seen a lot worse for Elizabeth, or a lot better.
Sascha.
Yeah, it's very straightforward to the point. But from that reading, Not anything as quite obvious as to plot yet, so I'm sure that's yet to come.
Yes, I mean, this is basically a detachable piece of text that is just used for performing to the king. So that may mean that there is a prologue, or there were prologues that might have been written for other occasions, but it might be the play doesn't need it most of the rest of the time, because we're about to go into something else that is introductory in its own way. Any additional thoughts on that very short little bit of text? No, there isn't really much to say, and that was about the response I was kind of hoping for. We're now going to go to the induction, or what we infer we could call an induction, a sort of alternative, not prologue, but a thing that sort of still sets up what's going on, but doesn't necessarily engage in the action too much. So here we have enter comedy joyfully. I want joyful entrancing. With a garland of bays on her head.
Why so? Thus do I hope to please. Music revives, and mirth is tolerable. Comedy, play thy part, and please. Make merry them that come to joy with thee. Joy then, good gentles, I hope to make you laugh. Sound forth Bellona's silver-tuned strings. Time fits us well, the day and place is ours.
And now enter Envy, his arms naked, besmeared with blood.
Nay, stay, minion. There lies a block. What? All on mirth? I'll interrupt your tale and mix your music with a tragic end.
What monstrous, ugly hag is this that dares control the pleasures of our will? Vaunt, churlish cur, besmeared with gory blood, that seems to check the blossoms of delight and stifle the sound of sweet Bellona's breath. Blush, monster, blush, and post away with shame, that seekest disturbance of a goddess's deeds.
Post hence thyself, thou counter-checking troll. I will possess this habit, spite of thee, and gain the glory of thy wished port. I'll thunder. Music shall appall the nymphs and make them shiver their clattering strings, flying for succour to their Danish caves.
And sound drums within, and there's a cry of stab!
Stab! Stab!
Hearken, thou shalt hear a noise, shall fill the air with trilling sound, and thunder music to the gods above. Mars shall himself breathe down a peerless crown upon brave Envy's head, and raise his chival with lasting fame. In this brave music Envy takes delight, where I may see them wallow in their blood, to spurn at arms and legs quite shivered off, and hear the cry of many thousand slain. How likest thou this, my troll? This sport alone for me.
Vaunt, bloody cur, nursed up with tiger's sap, that so dost seek to quail woman's mind. Comedy is mild, gentle, willing for to please, and seeks to gain the love of all estates, delighting in mirth, mixed with all lovely tales, and bringeth things with treble joy to pass. Thou bloody envious disdainer of men's joys, whose name is fraught with bloody stratagems, delights in nothing but spoil and death, where thou mayst trample in their lukewarm blood, and grasp their hearts within thy cursed paws. Yet veil thy mind. Revenge thou not on me. A silly woman begs it at thy hands. Give me the leave to utter out my play. Forbear this place. I humbly crave thee hence, and mix not death amongst pleasing comedies, that treat naught else but pleasure and delight. If any spark of human rests in thee, forbear, be gone. Tender the suit of me.
Why, so I will. Forbearance shall be such as treble death shall cross thee with despite, and make thee mourn where most thou joyest, turning thy mirth into a deadly dole, whittling thy pleasures with a peal of death, and drench thy methods in a sea of blood. This will I do. Thus shall I bear with thee, and more to vex thee with a deeper spite. I will with threats of blood begin thy play, favouring thee with envy and with hate.
Then, ugly monster, do thy worst. I will defend them in spite of thee. And though thou think'st with tragic fumes to brave my play unto my deep disgrace, I force it not. I scorn what thou canst do. I'll grace it so thyself shall I confess, from tragic stuff to be a pleasant comedy.
Why then, comedy, send thy actors forth, and I will cross the first steps of their tread, making them fear the very dart of death.
And I'll defend them, maugre all thy spite. So, ugly fiend, farewell, till time shall serve that we may meet to parley for the best.
Content, comedy, I'll go spread my branch, and scattered blossoms from my envious tree shall prove 2 monsters, spoiling of their joys.
And they exit. I really like this opening. I think it's such a wonderful idea of, I mean, it's envy, but it's the dark plot v happy plot. We're going to try and be happy, but I will cover everything in blood.
Green line cape, please.
We will continue to be sing and be merry and dance, and I will kneecap you as you do. It's really interesting if these 2 sprites are just sort of wandering around, pushing people. I don't know where it's going to go yet. Obviously I do, but I just wonder if there's an extra performative element to these 2, even if they don't have dialogue in certain scenes, whether they're there, sprinkling happy dust and blood.
You could actually see them to either side of the cross or either side of the stage, maybe slightly elevated from the action.
Well, I think I just wonder whether they prod people and push people in directions. I'm just I find that fascinating. I also just love sound drums within and cry stab stab, because that's what always happens in plays, isn't it? It's just someone's getting stabbed off stage.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost asking for the ease behind you response, aren't you?
It's very dynamic. I really do like this. We do have this kind of business in some other plays where they're playing with, we've had truth and poetry in the True Tragedy of Richard III. There are others where they have these sort of opening gambits where which are not necessarily engaging with the plot later on. These characters may or may not reappear. Other thoughts about comedy, other thoughts about envy. Helen.
Naked arms are that's a very, very big point. If you think of any early modern portrait you have ever seen, you never, ever see naked arms. I mean, there are occasionally naked legs, but there are never naked arms. I don't know why it is, but somehow naked arms makes a big point. I'm not sure what, but it's a big point.
And of course, there's something you can besmear with blood in a very satisfying way. I mean, there's something very tactile about it. Eric, I saw a hand.
I was just going to say, I like how this is basically like throwing shade at each other, but also like it's not just shade because it's actually going to be like a struggle between them. And it's just basically, I don't know, sort of, it sounds like a goth teen versus like the most popular kid in school kind of thing. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I love that. Alexandra.
I have a point to Helen's naked arms. This may be wrong, but my understanding is that in that context, it's weapons. It's weapons what's the word?
Yeah.
Weapons drawn and bloodied. In this kind of formulation.
So he's waving a sword around.
Yeah.
Or a dagger. A bloody dagger.
His weapons, naked as in not in a sheath, and besmeared with blood.
That's what I was thinking too.
So maybe the cries of stab, stab are people having discovered someone who's been stabbed just before envy came on. Stage managers just got it in the wing.
Probably
that makes far more sense.
Excellent. Other thoughts? I mean, beyond the fact we love it.
Sweet. I've never heard Bellona called sweet except by a soldier. I see this as the playwright in the middle with papers and putting this thing together, and these two coming in onto the playwright and tearing the scenes apart and adding stuff, and the poor old playwright tearing his hair. But
Yes.
maybe not.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I mean, the nice thing about this as a play is that it's not actually that long. So it does give us room to extrapolate and play around with it, I think, because we're not watching the clock all the time. So that seems like something that could be really fun and feels like within the logic of the play itself. Anything else before we sort of get into the meat, as it were, start getting to some action? Eric?
It could be also the sort of extrapolation of that image. It could be just like the two devils on the shoulder, like an angel and devil kind of thing, just arguing. Maybe I just watched too many cartoons.
Yeah, I was on the cartoon one. I was almost saying Envy as Dick Dastardly. For those old enough to remember him. A twirl of the moustache.
Yeah. Anything? Yes. There's a note about Antonio Melida about meta introductions. I can't remember what that one was. I don't think that was I think that was within the logic of the actors, though, wasn't it? As I recall.
Yes, it
rather
was the
than a
boys
supernatural
arguing over, oh, I always have to play this, and can I not just get like a hero?
Mm.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, as opposed to this, which is a sort of more, it's a metaphorical, allegorical kind of thing going on, as opposed to people talking about the world of the theatre that they live in. Ben Jonson does a lot of that as well. Marston and Johnson, they just can't leave the opening of plays alone. They start before they even start. It's just any play where you've gone in and there's action already happening in the auditorium before the show starts. Yeah, they did it first, and they just couldn't leave it alone. Anyway, so let's go on to scene one, or what we will call scene one, because I don't think the original texts have scene numbers per se. There is the sounding of some sort of trumpet, presumably. Enter Mucedorus and Anselmo, his friend.
Anselmo.
My lord and friend.
True, my Anselmo, both thy lord and friend, whose dear affections bosom with my heart, and keep their domination in one orb.
Whence ne'er disloyalty shall root it forth, but faith plant firmer in your choice respect.
Much blame were mine if I should other deem, nor can coy fortune contrary allow. But, my Anselmo, loath I am to say, I must estrange that friendship. Misconstrue not, 'tis from the realm, not thee, though lands part bodies, hearts keep company. Thou know'st that I imparted often have private relations with my royal sire, had as concerning beauteous Amadine, rich Aragon's blight jewel, whose face, some say, that blooming lilies never shone so gay, excelling, not excelled, yet lest report does mangle verity, boasting of what is not, winged with desire. Thither I'll straight repair, and be my fortunes as my thoughts are fair.
Will you forsake Valencia, leave the court, absent you from the eye of sovereignty? Do not, sweet prince, adventure on that task, since danger lurks each where, be won from it.
Desist, dissuasion. My resolution brooks no battery, therefore if thou retain thy wonted form, assist what I intend.
Your miss will breed a blemish in the court, and throw a frosty dew upon that beard, whose front Valencia stoops to.
If thou my welfare tender, then no more. Let love's strong magic charm thy trivial phrase, wasted as vainly as to gripe the sun. Augment not then more answers, lock thy lips, unless thy wisdom suits me with disguise according to my purpose.
That action craves no counsel, since what you rightly are will more command than best usurped shape.
I lost my place. Thou still art opposite in disposition. A more obscure, servile habiliment beseems this enterprise.
Then, like a Florentine or mountebank?
'Tis much too tedious. I dislike thy judgment. My mind is grafted on an humbler stock.
Within my closet does there hang a cassock, though base the weed is, 'twas a shepherd's, which I presented in Lord Julio's mask.
That, my Anselmo, and none else but that mask, Mucedorus, from the vulgar view. That habit suits my mind. Fetch me that weed.
And exit Anselmo.
Better than kings have not disdained that state, and much inferior to obtain their mate.
Re-enter Anselmo with the shepherd's coat, which he gives over to Mucedorus.
So let our respect command thy secrecy. At once a brief farewell. Delay to lovers is a second hell.
And exit Mucedorus.
Prosperity forerun thee. Awkward chance never been neighbour to thy wishes venture. Content and fame advance thee, ever thrive, and glory thy mortality survive.
And exit there. So bit of shepherd business here. A sort of inverse Tamburlaine. Any first thoughts about Mucedorus, his situation, this scene, and where do we think it's going? Alexandra.
It feels, I mean, just thus far, just this scene, it feels like a classic sort of setup. And I would really love, the prince who goes in, who takes on shepherd's weeds in order to woo his lady. It's got flavors of things we've seen a lot, and I would really love that to be subverted. But also, it feels to me that in the way that this is, just in the way that I've seen this amount of text, it doesn't seem to throw an opinion on the two characters. It shows them quite seriously. It doesn't go, isn't he ridiculous, idiot? Nor does it kind of push it too far in the opposite direction and make it melodramatic. So thus far, it seems to be heading straight in a direction that we're very familiar with.
So is it following comedy or envy?
Comedy, because it's heading towards a wedding, surely, not a murder, at this point. Although, yeah.
Who's got the wheel? Who's got the wheel of the car? Other thoughts? Helen?
There's quite a lot of literature, letters and descriptions of the efforts the courtiers made to prevent various early Stuart kings travelling to Scotland to be crowned or for privy council meetings or just to do any Scottish business at all. And I was reminded of this because they were weeping at the thought of being deserted by their king, even for a short period. I mean, it was ridiculous, the lengths they went to try and persuade them not to visit that awful place, Scotland.
So just on plot terms, so why is Mucedorus, someone want to just elucidate for the listeners at home, why is Mucedorus dressing up as a shepherd, and why is he making this journey to leave the court?
I haven't a clue.
Alexandra.
So Mucedorus is the son of the King of Valencia, who has fallen in love with the daughter of the King of Aragon, and her name is Amadine. He mentions her once. So he's going through this whole ruse to basically go and woo her.
He's off a wing. Excellent. So it's always that question that sometimes. Question is, does the first scene come across, especially when they're doing exposition, and how clear is it? So it's always good when someone admits that they don't know what just happened. We know he's dressing up as a shepherd, and perhaps that's all this first scene the audience needs to take in, but making absolutely clear that the one time that her name is mentioned, Amadine, is clear and really underlined, perhaps, is important. Any other thoughts before we move on to scene 2, Eric?
Well, like so far we've got verse, but we don't have like the only times we have rhyme are sort of well, it only starts after Mucedorus, I don't know whatever you want to call him, starts to talk about the love that he has for this this person, and the names are really unpronounceable. Anyway, which is really bad. But yeah. It seems very like, report, not repair, fair, and then it launches off into rhyme for a bit, and then it goes back into like non-rhyme, and then back and forth sort of.
Yeah, I wonder if it's to do with exits or entrances, because Mucedorus seems to do it at the exit of to cue in the entrance of Anselmo, and to indicate his exit, and Anselmo's exit at the end of the scene as well. So it might be that it's purely structural. I haven't looked earlier than that. I was just literally looking at that bit on the page. So it might function. In the chat, Alexandra was just asking how to pronounce Amadine, and that's just how I'm doing it. I always do it wrong, so who knows? I always hair for the wrong pronunciation. For all we know, there's lots of classicists laughing at us. Anything else before we move to scene 2? Okay, I'm going to do a little spoiler for scene 2 in the form of sound effects. There we are. So, scene 2: enter mouse with a bottle of hay.
Oh, horrible, terrible! Was ever poor gentleman so scared out of his 7 senses? A bear? Nay, sure it cannot be a bear, but some devil in a bear's doublet. For a bear could never have had that agility to have frighted me. Well, I'll see my father hanged before I serve his horse any more. Well, I'll carry home my bottle of hay, and for once make my father's horse turn Puritan and observe fasting days, for he gets not a bit. But so, this way she followed me. Therefore, I'll take the other path, and because I'll be sure to have an eye on him, I will take hands with some foolish creditor and make every step backward.
As he goes backwards, the bear comes in, and he tumbles over her and runs away, and leaves his bottle of hay behind him. Enter Segasto running, and Amadine after him, being pursued with a bear.
Oh, fly, madam, fly, or else we are but dead.
Help, Segasto! Help! Help, sweet Segasto, or else I die!
Alas, madam, there is no way but flight. Then haste and save yourself.
Why, then I die! Oh, help me in distress!
Enter Mucedorus like a shepherd with a sword drawn and a bear's head in his hand.
Stay, lady, stay, and be no more dismayed. That cruel beast, most merciless and fell, which hath bereaved thousands of their lives, affrighted many with his hard pursues, prying from place to find his prey, prolonging thus his life by others' death. His carcass now lies headless, void of breath.
That foul deformed monster, is he dead?
Assure yourself thereof. Behold his head, which, if it please you, lady, to accept, with willing heart I yield it to your majesty.
Thanks, worthy shepherd, thanks 1,000 times. This gift, assure thyself, contents me more than greatest bounty of a mighty prince, though he were the monarch of the world.
Most gracious goddess, more than mortal wight, your heavenly hue of right imports no less. Most glad am I, in that it was my chance to undertake this enterprise in hand, which doth so greatly glad your princely mind.
No goddess, shepherd, but a mortal wight distressed as you seest. My father here is king of Aragon. I, Amadine, his only daughter am, and after him sole heir unto the crown. Now, whereas it is my father's will to marry me unto Segasto, one whose wealth through father's former usury is known to be no less than wonderful, we both have custom oft times to use, leaving the court to walk within the fields for recreation, especially in the spring, in that it yields great store of rare delights. And passing farther out of our wonted walks, scarce entered were within these luckless woods, but right before us down a steep full hill, a monstrous ugly bear did hie him fast to meet us both. I faint to tell the rest. Good shepherd, but suppose the ghastly looks, the hideous fears, the 1,000 woes, which at this instance Amadine sustained.
Yet, worthy princess, let thy sorrows cease, and let this sight your former joys revive.
Believe me, shepherd, so it doth no less.
Long may they last unto your heart's content. But tell me, lady, what is become of him Segasto called? What has become of him?
I know not. I know the bowers divine, but God grant this, that sweet Segasto live.
Yet hard-hearted he in such a case, so cowardly to save himself by flight, and leave so brave a princess to the spoil.
Well, shepherd, for thy worthy valour tried, endangering thyself to set me free, unrecompensed, sure thou shalt not be. In court thy courage shall be plainly known. Throughout the kingdom will I spread thy name, to thy renown and never-dying fame, and that thy courage may be better known, bear thou the head of this most monstrous beast in open sight to every courtier's view. So will the king, my father, thee reward. Come, let's away and guard me to the court.
With all my heart.
And they exit. Enter Segasto solus.
When heaps of harms do hover overhead, 'tis times then, some say, to look about, and so of ensuing harms to choose the least. But hard, yea hapless is that wretch's chance, luckless his lot, and caitiff like accursed, at whose proceedings fortune ever frowns. Myself, I mean, most subject unto thrall, for the more I seek to shun the worst, the more I seek to shun the worst, the more by proof I find myself accursed, erewhiles assaulted with an ugly bear, fair Amadine in company all alone. Forthwith by flight I thought to save myself, leaving my Amadine unto her shifts, for death it was to resist the bear, and death no less of Amadine's harms to bear here. Accursed I in lingering life thus long, in living thus, each minute of an hour doth pierce my heart with darts of 1,000 deaths. If she by flight her fury do escape, what will she think? Will she not say, yea, flatly to my face, accusing me of mere disloyalty? A trusty friend is tried in time of need. But I, when she in danger was of death and needed me, and cried, Segasto, help! I turned my back and quickly ran away, unworthy I to bear this vital breath. But what needs these plaints? If Amadine do live, then happy I. She will in time forgive, and so forget. Amadine is merciful, not Juno-like, in harmful heart to harbor hatred long.
And enter Mouse the Clown, running, crying, and you can cry as many times as you like, clubs.
Ah! Clubs, brooms, pitchforks, bills! Oh help! Oh help! A bear! A bear! A bear!
Still bears and nothing else but bears. Tell me, sir, where she is.
Oh, sir, she is run down the woods. I see her white head and her white belly.
Thou talkest of wonders to tell me of white bears, but, sir, didst thou ever see any such?
Cubs! No, faith, I never saw any such, but I remember my father's words. He had me take heed I was not caught with a white bear.
A lamentable tale, no doubt.
Oh, I tell you what, sir, as I was going afield to serve my father's great horse and carried a bottle of hay upon my head, now do you see, sir? I fast hoodwinked that I could see nothing. Perceiving the bear coming, I threw my hay into the hedge and ran away. Clubs!
What, from nothing?
I warrant you, yes, I saw something, but there was 2 load of thorns beside my bottle of hay, and that made 3.
But tell me, sir, the bear that thou did see, did she not bear a bucket on her arm?
I never saw bear go a-milking in all my life. But hark you, sir, I did not look so high as her arm. I saw nothing but her white head and her white belly.
Tell me, sir, where dost thou dwell?
Why, do you not know me?
Why, no, how should I know thee?
Why, then you know nobody, and you know not me. I am the good man Rat's son of the next parish over the hill.
Goodman Rat's son. Why, what's that name? What's thy name?
Why, I am very near kin unto him.
I think so, but what's thy name?
My name? Oh, I have a very pretty name. I'll tell you what my name is. My name is Mouse.
What, plain mouse?
Aye, plain mouse, without either wilt or guard. But do you hear, sir? I am but a very young mouse, for my tail is scarce grown out yet. Look you here also.
But I pray thee, who gave thee that name?
They, sir, I know not that, but if you would fain know, ask my father's great horse, for he hath been half a year longer with my father than I have.
This seems to be a merry fellow. I care not if I take him home with me. Mirth is a comfort to a troubled mind. A merry man a merry master makes. How sayest thou, sirrah? Wilt thou dwell with me?
Nay, soft, sir. 2 words are to a bargain, pray you. What occupation are you?
No occupation. I live upon my lands.
Ah, your lands away! You are no master for me. Why, do you think that I am so mad to go seek my living in the lands among the stones, briars, and bushes, and tear my holiday apparel? Not I, by your leave.
Why, I do not mean thou shalt.
How then?
Why, thou shalt be my man and wait upon me at the court,
What's that?
where the king lies.
What, that same king, a man or a woman?
A man as thou art.
As I am? Hark thou, sir. Pray you, what kin is he to Goodman, king of our parish, the churchwarden?
No kin to him. He is the king of the whole land.
King of the land? I never saw him.
If thou wilt dwell with me, thou shalt see him every day.
Shall I go home again to be torn in pieces with bears? No, not I. I will go home and put on a clean shirt and then go drown myself.
Thou shalt not need if thou dwell with me. Thou shalt want nothing.
Oh, shall I not? Then here is my hand. I will dwell with you. And hark now, sir. Now you have entertained me, I will tell you what I can do. I can take my tongue from picking and stealing, and my hands from lying and slandering. I warrant you, as ever you had man in all your life.
Now will I to court with sorrowful heart, rounded with doubts. If Amadine do live, then happy I. Yeah, happy I, if Amadine do live.
And a exit, a scene crowded with with incident. So much going on. So there's some serious regifting going on here. So I, lady, present you with the head of this bear, and she says, "Yeah, well, if you give that to me, to the king, that'll go well. You just take the big dead head that's bleeding all over me clothes. That'd be nice." That may not be how it's played, but that's how it flew to me. We've got lots of business with a clown, and there's all sorts of things spinning in my head about a small clown from the 1590s again. I'm on the hunt for a small clown in the 1590s in those fields of the peace. So this interests me greatly. Is it a polar bear when it mentions white head and white belly? Or is that, was I missing the meaning on that? Was there something else going on in that little sequence of text? Helen?
Well, they did bring quite a number of polar bears into London. What you do is you kill a bear with its cub. You drag the corpse, because obviously you want the fur, onto the ship, and the cub follows. And then you can sell the cub when you get it back to England for quite a price.
Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. They did it a lot.
So maybe it's feeding into maybe it's a polar bear. So Bjorn Yorickson or something. I've got that name wrong, haven't I? Never mind. Tried to get his Dark Materials reference in there, but it all went a bit pear-shaped. Anyway, yes. So let's talk about Mouse, shall we? Shall we talk about Mouse? Is there a penis joke in there about his tail? Is that supposed to be? You know, he's quite small and has. I don't know.
You've got a very early modern dirty mind.
Yes, I have. But am I wrong?
No.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that reference, but yeah, it would. If you were to go the full hog, obviously I'm just cold reading and going with it at the moment. But my God, I mean, we've certainly got somebody who is ready for a jibe or two, certainly making the use of the tail. That would make sense technically with the penis reference. You know, oh, it's my tail. Yeah, look, right here. You know, just to kind of bring chaos and lightheartedness to the situation to counteract, so to speak. I thought that was really funny. It's very well written, actually.
And for the listeners at home, when we're talking about a bottle of hay, it's just a bundle of hay that he'll be carrying around with him. I don't know if there's any other textual things like that. It's interesting. It's a she bear. It's a female bear. And it's interesting. We had the gendering of envy and comedy earlier as well. So one was female, one was male. So there's interesting questions coming up about that. Alexandra, I see a hand.
I have a question, and it's about the bears. My understanding, because of the pronomial game, was that there were two. That there's one that is the she bear with the white belly that gets tripped over on stage, and there's another one that is the alleged he bear, who we don't necessarily see coming across, but he's referred to as being the one that's been slain.
That's
So the she bear is still roaming, and the he bear has been killed, is what I'm getting from the pronouns.
Ah.
Yeah, that could be right.
Okay, I did not pick up on that. Other thoughts? Helen?
I'd be surprised if any of them were taking the time to sex the bear. I mean, these bears are man killers.
Sascha?
Yeah, and that would also make sense with the mouse comment about 2 to 3 as well. You know, with the things that he's referencing to, there could well be more than one bear in there. So, yeah, that would make sense with what Alexandra's just said.
So okay, let's just get this clear. Amadine, a young woman, is being pursued by at least 3 bears. Now, I'm not suggesting that any porridge is involved in this scenario.
And we don't know what colour her hair is, but
No,
Amadine does sound, you know, illustrative. It does sound like a colourful name.
Yeah. So yeah, I just sorry, it just came to me. Segasto, I like his speech. It's just I never have any luck. Who could have predicted bears? What was I supposed to do?
Bless him.
You know, and nobody's coming across, you know, as, you know, they're all just sort of people doing things. You know, there's not like someone's coming on twirling moustache and being evil, or you know, they're all ridiculously virtuous either, for that matter. There's something quite level about this. You know, I think Mouse has a legitimate reason to be, you know, doing what he does. I think Segasto's response is perfectly legitimate. Who's really noble in pursuit when pursued by a bear, really? Other thoughts? Helen?
I love the way Mouse thinks that it's necessary to go home and put on a clean shirt before drowning himself. I mean, that is not, that doesn't ring true to me, but I think it's lovely. And also he gets the catechism, everything wrong. I mean, it's the picking and stealing and the lying and slandering. It's keep my hands from picking and stealing and my tongue from lying and slandering, obviously.
I did wonder, because there's a sudden burst of verse in Segasto's line. I half wondered whether Segasto suddenly sings. Whether that's a few lines of popular verse. This seems to be a merry fellow, I care not if, I know it's not, but it's just, there's something about that just, the way it suddenly shifts, even if it's not actually sung, but there's something about that interests me. But Alexandra.
I think that might be an aside.
Yes.
I was yeah. That's how I picked up on it, and I didn't realize until you just said so now that it might be that I picked it up as an aside because of the change in style. Yeah,
that makes sense. I recognizing the non-conformity, but not quite sure what to do with it. Eric.
I find it interesting that Mouse's last words in this, kind of, now you have entertained me, which is like basically his job as a clown.
Yeah.
And then later on, it's like, I warrant you as well as you ever had man. I don't know what that part means, but it sounds like, a sort of perhaps a single entendre. I don't know. Also, I was like, I don't know what it's about. Yeah, that bit.
Alan.
Well, I think the ever had man is man as in servant. So rather than any reference to anything else. Thinking about the rhymes at the end of scenes, I'm just wondering if this got reference back to the work we were doing last week on cue scripts, with a rhyming couplet effectively being the cue for the entrance of the next person.
Or to punctuate for the audience that this is the end of the scene in the absence of lights and the stuff that we have today.
These days you would do a snap blackout or whatever.
Yeah. Yes. So that's its function. It's just interesting that it was happening in the middle of the scene, almost actually, to cue entrances and exits or indicate entrance and exits, which is a little excessive. But
if they're working with cue scripts, it's a possibility, isn't it?
And for the viewers at home, yes, we were working on cue scripts, but you won't see any of that for ages. Don't look for it on the videos where it's not being released yet. Sorry. Any other thoughts before we move on to scene 3? Eric.
I was just going to say that I think it's got like that element of like sort of the Superman disguise where like, oh yeah, he puts on glasses or he puts on some like an item of clothing and suddenly we can't recognize him. Which is kind of, I don't know if this is like customary in 16th century theater, but it seems very Superman-y for like sort of the time.
Are we talking Mucedorus' shepherd's disguise here? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people would know who he is within the circle of the characters we've met so far, but yeah, we don't know how elaborate his disguise is, of course. There are reasons why it could be very elaborate how he normally looks, which I may come to later.
Am I right in thinking that Amadine is the love interest here?
Yes.
In which case, doesn't Mucedorus say that they have in fact seen each other? Or has he just seen her passing by?
I don't know how explicit the opening scene was on that point.
he said something like to his friend. He said, "You know, I've been talking to my dad a lot about this girl, and she's the daughter of Aragon, and that's where I'm heading."
Yeah, he's talked about imparted. He's talked about his father in private about her, but I don't think there's any indication of actually how much he knows her at all.
No, that's all he says. That's all he says.
Yeah. Okay, let us put bears aside. I don't know, the bears might return. Could be a whole Benny Hill bear sequence available. It looks like the bear was positively upstaging the clown at the beginning anyway. The potential for that bear to just keep wandering in and out. Enormous. Anyway, we go to scene 3, and so we're swapping some roles around. I'm actually reading some text. Briefly, but we have a king now. Enter the king with a young prince prisoner, Amadine with Collen and counsellors.
Now, brave lords, that our wars are brought to end, our foes have had the foil, and we in safety rest. It us behooves to use such clemency in peace as valour in the wars. It is as great honour to be bountiful at home as to be conquerors in the field. Therefore, my lords, the more to my content, your liking, and your country's safeguard, we are disposed in marriage for to give our daughter to Lord Segasto here, who shall succeed the diadem after me, and reign hereafter, as I before have done, your sole and lawful king of Aragon. What say you, lordlings? Like you of my advice?
And please, your majesty, we do not only allow of your highness' pleasure, but also vow faithfully in what we may to further it.
Thanks, my good lords. If long Adrostus live, he will at full requite your courtesies. Tremelio, in recompense of thy late valour done, take unto thee the Catalonian prince, lately our prisoner taken in the wars. Be thou his keeper. His ransom shall be thine. We'll think of it when leisure shall afford. Meanwhile, do use him well. His father is a king.
Oh, thanks to your majesty. His usage shall be such as he thereat shall think no cause to grudge. And exit all except for the king and Collen.
Then march we on to court and rest our wearied limbs. But, Collen, I have a tale in secret kept for thee. When thou shalt hear a watchword from thy king, think then some weighty matter is at hand that highly shall concern our state. Then, Collen, look thou be not far from me, and for thy service thou tofore hast done, thy truth and valour proved in every point, I shall with bounties thee enlarge therefore. So, guard us to the court.
Whatso my sovereign doth command me do, with willing mind I gladly yield consent.
And they all exit. So Amadine said a lot in this scene regarding her marriage. Huge speech there. I mean, to be fair, Segasto didn't say a lot either. If he's in the scene? Question mark? Question. I mean, he's got to be. He's just literally exited. So, bit of a turnaround there. So what did we think of Daddy?
It's real politic again, isn't it? And given that we've already had the description that Segasto has actually been effectively the king's banker, you know, this is the payoff in lieu of interest.
Other thoughts? Collen or Collen or Collen, but
not yet dead.
Not dead. This is a non-dead Collen.
Possibly one had no cow.
No.
This is the dying Collen in
Arraignment of Paris.
Arraignment of Paris. Yeah. One scene and he was gone. See if this Collen has greater staying power. He's going to be told something later that's going to be very important. I mean, it's a really weird scene in a sense. It's just very brief. It's just there to just introduce characters, set up some additional motion, stuff that's going on elsewhere. Other thoughts, Alexandra?
It is, as you pointed out at the beginning, it is basically a monologue with two little lines added in from other people just to kind of pretend it's not a monologue. But there are three people in this scene, all the three that we've encountered thus far as important people, right? The prince, who I'm guessing is our prince, as Mucedorus.
No.
No?
No.
Some other prince then. Very well.
He's
Good.
Random bloke.
But there's this brilliant, like, he's important. Get him out before he opens his mouth. And then, Amadine gets a similar treatment. And Segasto I think, is in the scene as well, because it's we give our daughter to Lord Segasto here. So, yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's weird because Segasto is literally the last person speaking in the previous scene, and he is the first person to speak in the next scene. I'm very tempted to say you take the word here out.
Or I here give her to Segasto, but not that
literally in the
Segasto's
room.
here.
Yeah. Because
in which case the others don't have to be there either.
Mm.
The daughter,
then you literally all you need in the room is Tremelio and Collen as advisors and random prisoner X472. Eric,
I was just going to say, that part about if long Adrostus live, what exactly does that refer to? Because is that referring to the prince or someone else who's in the room, or the mythical Adrostus who battled with death and that kind of stuff? I'm not entirely sure what that refers to.
He seems to be some other offstage character, isn't he?
I presumed it was the king.
I thought he was himself.
Yes, he's referring to himself. I am King Adrostus, and if I live, you will be rewarded. Yeah.
So there are multiple kings. It is this king that he is speaking of himself as king. Yes, so that's his name. He's speaking in the third person, which kings are allowed to do.
Speaking in the third person is very useful for the audience too.
Or in this case, slightly confusing. But it's a good point to. Himself is a good note, so that further down the line we don't get confused. Other thoughts before we move forward? No? Okay, it was a short scene. It was doing some structural things mostly. Scene 4. Enter Segasto, who's just left, and the clown mouse with weapons about him.
Tell me, sir, how do you like your weapons?
Oh, very well, very well. They keep my sides warm.
They keep the dogs from your shins very well, do they not?
How? Keep the dogs on my shins? I would scorn, but my shins could keep the dogs from them.
Well, sir, leaving idle talk, tell me, dost thou know Captain Tremelio's chamber?
Aye, very well. It hath a door.
I think so, for so hath every chamber, but dost thou know the man?
Aye, forsooth, he hath a nose on his face.
Why, so hath everyone.
Ah, that's more than I know.
But dost thou remember the captain that was here with the king even now, that brought the young prince prisoner?
Oh, very well.
Go unto him, and bid him come to me. Tell him I have a matter in secret to impart to him.
I will, master. Master, what's his name?
Why, Captain Tremelio.
Oh, the meal man. I know him very well. He brings a meal every Saturday. But hark you, master, must I bid him come to you, or must you come to him?
No, sir, he must come to me.
Hark you, master. How if he be not at home? What shall I do then?
Why, then leave word with some of his folks.
How, master, if there be nobody within? I will leave word with his dog.
Why, can his dog speak?
I cannot tell. Wherefore does he keep his chamber close, else?
To keep out such knaves as thou art.
Nay, by it the lady, then go yourself.
You will go, sir, will you not?
Oh, yes, marry will I. Oh, 'tis come to my head. And I be not within, I'll bring his chamber to you.
What, wilt thou pluck down the king's house?
Nay, by a lady, I know the price of it first. Master, it is such a hard name. I have forgotten it again. I pray you tell me his name.
I'll tell thee. Captain Tremelio.
Oh, Captain Treble Knave. Captain Treble Knave.
Enter Tremelio to save us from this hell. How now, sirrah, dost thou call me?
You must come to my master, Captain Treble Knave.
My lord Segasto, did you send for me?
I did, Tremelio. Sirrah, about your business.
Ay, marry, what's that? Can you tell?
No, not well.
Marry, then I can. Straight to the kitchen dresser, to John the cook, and get me a good piece of beef and brewis, and then to the buttery hatch, to Thomas the butler for a jack of beer, there then for an hour, so I'll be labour myself, and therefore I pray you call me not till you think I have done, I pray you, good master.
Well, sir, away.
Yes, and exit mouse.
Tremelio, this it is. Thou knowest the valour of Segasto, spread through all the kingdom of Aragon, and such as hath found triumphant favours, never daunted at any time. But now a shepherd is admired at in court for worthiness, and Segasto's honour is laid aside. My will, therefore, is this, that thou dost find some means to work the shepherd's death. I know thy strength sufficient to perform my desire, and thy love no otherwise than to revenge my injuries.
It is not the frowns of a shepherd that Tremelio fears, therefore account it accomplished what I take in hand.
Thanks, good Tremelio, and assure thyself what I promise that I will perform.
Thanks, my lord, and in good time. See where he cometh. Stand by a while, and you shall see me put in practice your intended drift. Have at thee, swain, if I hit thee right.
Vile coward! So without cause to strike a man, turn, coward! Turn, now strike, and do thy worst.
Mucedorus kills him.
Hold, shepherd, hold. Spare him, kill him not. Accursed villain, tell me, what hast thou done? Tremelio, trusty Tremelio, I put my sorrow for thy death, and since that thou living didst prove faithful to Segasto, so Segasto now living shall honour the dead corpse of Tremelio with revenge. Bloodthirsty villain, born and bred to merciless murder, tell me how durst thou be so bold as once to lay thy hands upon the least of mine? Assure thyself, thou shalt be used according to the law.
Segasto, cease. These threats are needless, but in mine own defence accuse not me of murder that I have done nothing.
Nay, shepherd, reason not with me. I'll manifest the fact unto the king, whose doom will be thy death, and thou deservest as thou deservest. What ho, mouse, come away.
Enter mouse.
Why, how now, what's the matter? I thought you would be calling before I had done.
Come help. Away with my friend.
Why, is he drunk? Can he not stand on his feet?
No, he is not drunk. He is slain.
Slain? No, by a lady, he is not slain.
What do you use to... Oh, sorry. He's killed, I tell thee.
What? What do you use to kill your friends? I will serve you no longer.
I tell thee the shepherd killed him.
Oh, did it so? But, master, I will have all his apparel if I carry him away.
Why, so thou shalt.
Come then, I will help. Master, I think his mother sang Luby to him. He is so heavy.
And exit with the body.
Behold the fickle state of man, always mutable, never at one. Sometimes we feed on fancies with the sweet of our desires. Sometimes, again, we feel the heat of extreme miseries. Now am I in favor about the court and country. Tomorrow those favors will turn to frowns. Today I live revenged on my foe. Tomorrow I die, my foe revenged on me.
And he exits. Wow, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming.
Oh,
I'm trying to figure out how to make Tremelio work as treble knave. Treble knave. Is there a musical pun in there or something that I'm missing that makes that work better? Because it's, we've had clowns doing getting the name wrong slightly thing before, and it's a really nice sketch. Basically, trying to tell the servant what to do, the servant can't remember, comedy business stuff. It's quite fun. I quite liked most of that. I actually laughed. I actually laughed, which is probably a comment on me more than the text. And then, so comedy and envy. There, who's winning this scene? Who's winning this scene? Alexandra.
Well, I feel as though what Mucedorus says just before he exits is that, it keeps being a toss between the two. Today everything's great. Tomorrow I might, fortune might hate me. But yeah, I mean, obviously things are not going great. Things are far more in the direction of tragedy than comedy at the moment. But it's nice to be reminded, as he does, that remember those two guys. Yeah, things are playing between them.
Yeah, Helen.
I think that the beginning of this scene goes back to the scene before, because Segasto says that you've seen Tremelio in the last scene, which implies that not only that Segasto was there, but that Mouse was there in attendance on him.
Yeah.
Does thou remember the captain that was here with the king even now that brought in the young prince prisoner?
So the scenes are accurate. How we go from one scene to another is the question that we haven't answered.
But it's slightly worse than this, because we're missing an enormous scene where the shepherd gets his reward.
Turns up with a bear.
Yeah, well, the bear's head anyway.
Yeah.
And is duly rewarded.
Do we feel a dumb show is required?
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. A dumb show at the beginning of the king's scene, where even if it's just as the king comes in, he's shaking the shepherd's hand and dumping a purse on him, and the shepherd, just a tiny little thing.
And then if they exit, leaving, there's the exit, and that's actually relatively straight at the end. But yeah, dumb show at the beginning of the scene, right? We're putting that in, right? Decided, job done.
Yay.
And I've thought, the Segasto cops it, not Segasto, Tremelio cops it, yeah. Stabby.
And he just had this enormous gift of the ransom of the Catalonian prince. And next minute, he's dead.
Yeah. Like, it's...
that's envy for you.
Yeah. I think
I really liked that. Sorry to be speaking out of turn. I really liked the fact that we got to set him up and establish him and make us care a little bit before he gets killed in the second or the fourth scene, whatever it is.
Yeah, he really didn't say a lot. There's a reason why I was reading him. Eric.
There's like a sort of a Blackadder Baldric dynamic going on between Mouse and what's his name, Segasto, which is like, I said XYZ, and you're doing like ZXY or whatever, and it's like, okay, what? It's like, if this were actual person, I'd be shaking him, or like sort of, I don't know, trying not to strangle him kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I was going to say, especially with our interaction, if we wanted to take the Blackadder thing further, we could. I mean, certainly it's clear who's Baldric and who is Blackadder at this moment in time. And I just think, what really works about this scene, I mean, I know you were asking earlier whether envy or comedy wins. It's both. It's both
Yeah.
who are equal, I think. The comedy's in there for the light relief of the scattiness, the craziness, and then all of a sudden you get this swift coming in here of envy. Is like, hello, whip the rug from under your feet moment. That, I just think it's so well constructed, really well written.
And the way you play it can really swing the dynamic of this scene. So, it's literally go and find Tremelio. Tremelio turns up. He immediately says, right, you can I want you to kill this guy. And he goes, okay, oh, he's over there. No, not yet.
Not yet.
Is a possible way of doing it. I mean, but it's... he just basically says, find some means to work the shepherd's death. It doesn't mean go just hack at him the moment you see him next. So it's basically Segasto is surrounded by idiots. Segasto's not having any luck, and he's constantly making this point about no luck. Wheel of Fortune is not in his favour. He was getting on quite well with the king's daughter. Then this bear turns up.
Yeah, it's Blackadder, Baldric, and Percy.
Mm.
Yeah. That's it.
I mean, he's still the affianced. It's he's still technically, in line. So
yeah.
Other thoughts before we move on to scene 5?
I can't help but wonder if the guy who's playing Tremelio is later on like someone else. Like maybe that was for the doubling rather than plot wise.
Killing people really helps doubling.
Yeah,
really helps doubling. According to the doubling, he literally comes on now. They got him off stage for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. He's coming on as Bremo.
Well, that's long enough to turn your coat over and put on a different wig.
Yeah. Oh no,
That's plenty of time.
I'm not knocking it. I'm just that wasn't the doubling I had in mind. Okay. Let's go on to scene 5. It is enter Bremo, a wild man.
No passenger this morning. What? Not one? A chance that seldom doth befall. What? Not one? Oh, then lie thou there and rest thyself till I have further need.
And he lays down his massive club.
Now, Bremo, sith thy leisure so affords an endless thing, who knows not Bremo's strength, who like a king commands within these woods? The bear, the boar dares not abide my sight, but hastes away to save themselves by flight. The crystal waters in the bubbling brooks, when I come by, doth swiftly slide away, and clasps themselves in closets under banks, afraid to look bold Bremo in the face. The aged oaks at Bremo's breath do bow, and all things else are still at my command. Else what would I? Rend them in pieces, and pluck them from the earth, and each way else I would revenge myself. Why, who comes here with whom I dare not fight? Who fights with me and doth not die the death? Not one. What favour shows this sturdy stick to those that here within these woods are combatants with me? Why, death and nothing else but present death. With restless rage I wander through these woods. No creature here but feareth Bremo's force. Man, woman, child, beast and bird, and everything that doth approach my sight are forced to fall, if Bremo once do frown. Come, cudgel, come, my partner in my spoils, for here I see this day it will not be. But when it falls that I encounter any, one pat sufficeth for to work my will. What? Comes not one? Then let's be gone. A time will serve when we are better sped.
I like and exit Bremo. It's one man's love story with his big cudgel. One day I'll get to split someone's skull with my cudgel. One day our time will come.
Sorry, my mind just went completely the opposite direction from it.
That was that's double entendres are us.
I mean, when you've got lines like "Come, cudgel, come, my partner in my spoils." Yeah. Yeah.
Massive cudgel there. Massive cudgel. So yeah, he's he has no problems with bears. No problems with bears for old Bremo. No. And even water is afraid of him. Even water will hide from his ugly face and his terrifying features and his awful breath. So yeah, it's a nice pen portrait from professional cudgeler. It's more a vocation than a profession, really, isn't it? Other thoughts? Eric?
I can't help but wonder, because like we were talking about Blackadder earlier, and in an interview I remember watching, Rowan Atkinson had said that he'd picked the name Bob for a character because of the double B's and that he struggled to say them. And I can't help but wonder whether this is what's happening here, where Bremo, Tremelio, and all that stuff, and it's like it's very hard to say very quickly, or like sort of even like when it's like so close together, I can't like forced to fall. Bremo wants to frown and that kind of stuff. It's like what? It's just very difficult to say out loud.
He's doing the alliteratives, isn't he? Why, who, what, that, why, as well. Interesting. Do we need to linger on him, or should we rattle on into the next scene? Let's move on to the next scene. Let's see what's going on there. Now, for purposes of doubling, I will be reading the few lines afforded by Mucedorus. Alexandra will remain as the king. So there's all sorts of business going on here. Enter the king, Segasto, the shepherd, Mucedorus, and the clown, Mouse, with others.
Shepherd, thou hast heard thine accusers. Murder is laid to thy charge. What canst thou say? Thou hast deserved death.
Dread sovereign, I must needs confess I slew this captain in mine own defence, not of any malice, but by chance. But mine accuser hath a further meaning.
Words we will not hear prevail. I seek for justice, and justice craves his death.
Shepherd, thine own confession hath condemned thee. Sirrah, take him away, and do him to execution straight.
So he shall, I warrant him. But do you hear, Master King? He is kin to a monkey. His neck is bigger than his head.
Sirrah, away with him, and hang him about the middle.
Yes, forsooth, I warrant you. Come on, sir. So like a sheep biter a locks.
And enter Amadine and a boy with a bear's head.
Dread sovereign and well-beloved sire, on bended knee I crave the life of this condemned shepherd, which heretofore preserved the life of thy somewhat time distressed daughter.
You're muted at the moment.
Preserved the life of my sometime distressed daughter. How can that be? I never knew the time wherein thou wast distressed. I never knew the day but that I have maintained thy estate, as best beseems the daughter of a king. I never saw the shepherd until now. How comes it then that he preserved thy life?
Once walking with Segasto in the woods, further than our accustomed manner was, right before us down a steep full hill, a monstrous ugly bear did hie him fast to meet us both. Now whether this be true, I refer it to the credit of Segasto.
Most true, and like your majesty.
Oh, then?
The bear, being eager to obtain his prey, made forward to us with an open mouth, as if he meant to swallow us both at once. The sight whereof did it make us both to dread, but specially your daughter Amadine, who, for I saw no succour incident, but in Segasto's valour I grew desperate, and he, most coward-like, began to fly, left me distressed to be devoured of him. How say you, Segasto? Is it not true?
His silence verifies it to be true. What then?
Then I, amazed, distressed, all alone, did hie me fast, escape that ugly bear. But all in vain, for why he reached after me, and oft I hardly did escape his paws, till at length this shepherd came, and brought to me his head. Come hither, boy. Lo, here it is, which I present unto your majesty. Muted.
The slaughter of this bear deserves great fame.
The slaughter of a man deserves great blame.
Indeed, occasion oftentimes so falls out.
Tremelio in the wars, O king, preserved thee.
The shepherd in the woods, O king, preserved me.
Tremelio fought when many men did yield.
So would the shepherd, had he been in field.
So would my master had he not run away.
Tremelio's force saved thousands from the foe.
The shepherd's forth has saved thousands more.
Aye, sheep ticks, nothing else.
Segasto, cease to accuse the shepherd. His worthiness deserves the recompense, and all we are bound to do the shepherd good. Shepherd, whereas it was my sentence thou shouldst die, so shall my sentence stand, for thou shalt die.
Thanks to your majesty.
But soft, Segasto, not for this offence. Long mayst thou live, and when the sisters shall decree to cut in twain the twisted thread of life, then let him die. For this I set him free, and for thy valour will I honour thee.
Oh, well, thanks to your majesty.
Daughter, let us now depart to honour the worthy valour of the shepherd with our rewards.
And they exit, leaving behind Mouse and Segasto.
Oh, master, hear you. You have made a fresh hand now. You would be slow, you. Why, what will you do now? You have lost me a good occupation by this means. Faith, master, now I cannot hang the shepherd. I pray you, let me take the pains to hang you. It is but half an hour's exercise.
You are still in your knavery. But sith I cannot have his life, I will procure his banishment forever. Come on, sirrah.
Yes, forsooth I come. Laugh at him, I pray you.
And they exit. Nice bit of wordplay. He shall die because everybody dies eventually.
Yeah.
So that sadly puts shot to our dumb show theory. He hasn't presented himself to the king in the intervening thing. Segasto is simply getting rid of him because of the embarrassment of the whole bear incident. That's his motivation. It's not that he's actually a rising star in the court at all. So we need to find other alternative fillers for the gaps between scenes. But otherwise, relating details of stuff we already knew. But to the effect, there's a nice big pause in Adamine's story as she says, you know, how say you, Segasto, is this not true? I feel for Segasto. You know, okay, he did plot one murder, but they don't know that. You know, it's you know, it was a bit embarrassing. You know, it was a bear. What was he supposed to do? God. He's a bit murdery, but they don't know that. Bit murdery, but I say they don't know that. I feel they're being a bit. Well, I suppose they're not being harsh. You know, they're just not doing too much to him. I like the mouse's sheep's ticks line. I did think that. I did actually laugh at that. I thought that was actually funny. This clown is making me laugh. We have had some bad clowns. This is quite a good clown, in my opinion. You can disagree. Helen?
I love the clown's last line, laugh at him, I pray you.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I mean, if ever there was a line said to the audience about a departing villain.
Mm.
Yeah.
He's slowly drifting into villainy as well, isn't he? You know, bit by bit, Segasto's just getting there, isn't he? Alan?
Yeah, I'm on that specific line. I think maybe, yes, the him referred to is Segasto, and that maybe needs a bit of verbal stress to make that clear to the audience.
I think
Pointing finger.
Yeah, I think in presence it should be fine, but yeah, making sure it lands.
I must admit, I'm not finding the clown at all amusing, but that may be just me.
Oh, you're allowed to disagree. I'm liking the clown, but yeah, you may all find him terrible.
It seems, I mean, the nearest we've had, in my view, to a clown role was the Wild Man of the Woods, and quite what his place in the thing, other than a spectacle to take up a scene while they're changing set or whatever, I'm not sure.
His role will not emerge clearly today, I will say, but he will return. He is not there just for set dressing.
I assumed that he was just another guy from Mucedorus to kill.
This is, who knows? Who knows? Don't know. That's a good prediction. I'm liking that. Maybe they become firm friends and become pen pals. Who knows?
Gets him into anger management.
Yes, he does need it, doesn't he? Okay, we have 2 scenes left to go. We have a relatively long one. I say relatively. Scene 7. Enter Mucedorus Solus. And we're returning to our original Mucedorus.
From Amadine and from her father's court, with gold and silver and with rich rewards flowing from the banks of golden treasuries, more may I boast and say, but I was never shepherd in such dignity.
Enter Messenger and the Clown.
All hail, worthy shepherd.
All hail,
Hooray.
lousy shepherd.
Welcome, my friends. From whence come you?
The king and Amadine greet thee well, and after greetings done, bids thee depart the court, shepherd. Begone.
Shepherd, take law legs. Fly away, shepherd.
Whose words are these? Come these from Amadine?
I from Amadine.
I from Amadine.
Ah, luckless fortune, worse than Phaeton's tale. My former bliss is now become my bale.
What? Wilt thou poison thyself?
My former heaven is now become my hell.
The worst alehouse that ever I came into in all my life.
What shall I do?
Even go hang thyself half an hour?
Can Amadine so churlishly command to banish the shepherd from her father's court?
What should shepherds do in the court?
What should shepherds do among us? Have we not lords enough o'er us in the court?
What shepherds are men, and kings are no more.
Over their flock.
Oh, that's a lie. Who pays them their wages then?
Well, you are always interrupting of me, but you are best look to him, lest you hang for him when he is gone.
Ooh, someone's stepping on your cues. You got a bit shirty there. Exit the messenger. The clown now sings.
And you shall hang the company for leaving me alone. Shepherd, stand forth and hear thy sentence. Shepherd, be gone within 3 days in pain of my displeasure. Shepherd, be gone, shepherd, be gone, be gone, be gone, be gone. Shepherd, shepherd, shepherd.
And exit mouse.
And must I go, and must I needs depart? Ye goodly groves, partakers of my songs, in time to fore, when fortune did not frown, pour forth your plaints and wail a while with me. And thou, bright sun, my comfort in the cold, hide thy face and leave me comfortless. Ye wholesome herbs and sweet-smelling savours, yea, each thing else prolonging life of man, change your wanted course, that I, wanting your aid, in woeful sort may die.
Enter Amadine and Ariena, her maid.
Ariana, if anyone asks for me, make some excuse till I return.
What? And Segasto call?
Do thou the like to him. I mean not to stay long.
And the maid exits.
His voice so sweet, my pining spirits revives.
Shepherd, well met. Tell me how thou dost.
I linger life, yet wish for speedy death.
Shepherd, although thy banishment already be decreed, and all against my will, yet Amadine.
Ah, Amadine, to hear of banishment is death. I double death to me, but since I must depart, one thing I crave.
Say on with all my heart.
That in absence, either far or near, you honour me as servant with your name.
Not so.
And why?
I honour thee as sovereign of my heart.
A shepherd and a sovereign, nothing like.
Yet like enough, where there is no dislike.
Yet great dislike, or else no banishment.
Shepherd, it is only Segasto that procures thy banishment.
Unworthy wights are most in jealousy.
Would God they would free them from banishment, or likewise banish me.
Amen, say I, to have your company.
Well, shepherd, since thou sufferest this for my sake, with thee in exile, also let me live. On this condition, shepherd, thou canst love.
No longer love, no longer let me live.
Of late I loved one indeed, now love I none but only thee.
Thanks, worthy princess, I burn likewise, yet smother up the blast. I dare not promise what I may perform.
Well, shepherd, hark what I shall say. I will return unto my father's court, there to provide me of such necessaries as for my journey I shall think most fit. This being done, I will return to thee. Do thou, therefore, appoint the place where we may meet.
Down in the valley where I slew the bear, and there doth grow a fair broad-branched beech that overshades a well. So who comes first, let them abide the happy meeting of us both. How like you this?
I like it very well.
Now, if you please, you may appoint the time.
Full 3 hours hence, God willing, I will return.
The thanks that Paris gave the Grecian queen, the like doth Mucedorus yield.
Then, Mucedorus, for 3 hours, farewell.
And she exits.
Your departure, lady, breeds a privy pain.
And he exits as well. We're going to go straight into the next scene to do a bit more double act comedy from Enter Segasto Solus first.
This well, Segasto, that thou hast thy will. Should such a shepherd, such a simple swain as he eclipse thy credit, famous through the court? No, ply, Segasto, ply. Let it not in Aragon be said, a shepherd hath Segasto's honour won.
And enter Mouse the Clown calling his master.
What ho, master, will you come away?
Will you come hither, I pray you? What's the matter?
Why, is it not past 11 o'clock?
How then, sir?
I pray you, come away to dinner.
I pray you come hither.
There's such a to do with you. Will you never come?
I pray you, sir, what news of the message I sent you about?
I tell you, all the messes be on the table already. There once not so much as a mess of mustard half an hour ago.
Come, sir, your mind is all upon your belly. You have forgotten what I bid you do.
Oh, faith, I know nothing, but you had me go to breakfast.
Was that all?
Faith, I have forgotten it. The very scent of the meat made me forget it quite.
You have forgotten the errand I bid you do.
What errand? An errant knave or an errant whore?
Why, thou knave, did I not bid thee banish the shepherd?
Oh, the shepherd's bastard!
I tell you the shepherd's banishment.
Oh, I tell you, the shepherd's bastard shall be well kept. I'll look to it myself. But I pray you, come away to dinner.
Then you will not tell me whether you have banished him or no?
Why, I cannot say banishment, and you would give me £1,000 to say so.
Why, you horse and slave, have you forgotten that I sent you and another to drive away the shepherd?
What an ass you are! Here's a stir indeed. Here's message, arrant, banishment, and I cannot tell what.
I pray you, sir, shall I know whether you have drove him away?
Faith, I think I have, and you will not from me be asked my staff.
Why, can thy staff tell?
Why, he was with me too.
Then happy I that have obtained my will.
And happier I if you would go to dinner.
Come, sir, follow me.
I warrant you, I will not lose an inch of you now you are going to dinner, I promise you. I thought it 7 years before I could get him away.
And they exit. So, I'm not sure that scene 8 exactly adds a lot to the plot, but it's just more comedy business, which continues a train of thought in my head, which I may share later. All this is exciting me in many ways. So let's go back, however, to Mucedorus and the first appearance of Mouse in the previous scene, singing, "You're screwed, mate, you're screwed, goodbye."
That was brilliant. I'm sorry. I mentioned in the chat he's very quickly turning into Mark Hamill's Joker here.
Just mean. Na, 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 na. And it's again, we've got the same thing Alexandra was saying earlier. You know, Mucedorus keeps coming on, reiterating the opening MV comedy stuff of going, "Hey, everything's going great. Who knew it could go?" And then immediately, everything goes terrible.
There you go.
And in the next little bit, he goes, "Oh my God, isn't my life terrible?" And then Amadine comes along and goes, "Let's sort this out. Why don't we run away together?" Yay! It goes the other way around. It's great. Can I point out something that I found really interesting, because we've just been talking about Q scripts. There's that moment in this first scene of the ones that we've just read, where the messenger says to Mouse that he's interrupting him, and all along, all through this page, we've had repetitive cues. So we've had, Messenger and Mouse both finish with Shepherd, which is the cue for Mucedorus, but also for each other. Shepherd happens a lot. Amadine happens, so it goes from Amadine, from Amadine, from Amadine. And it just keeps going like that. The court. So it's written intentionally so that everybody would be speaking over each other, and kind of giving us that for free, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a saying that it just fundamentally doesn't work on Zoom. But the fact that Mouse and Messenger just basically keep talking at the same time. And, we couldn't do that, but that should be actually much more annoying for the messenger every time it keeps happening. And it's just, what? Oh, I'm off.
It's not just the messenger, yeah. And it's not just the messenger. Mucedorus is involved in that kind of cue confusion as well. And what's wonderful is that Mouse's song repeats the word shepherd continually, especially at the end, but also throughout. And shepherd is Mucedorus's cue. So every time in Mouse's song that he'd be saying shepherd, presumably the actor playing Mucedorus would be, obliged by convention to go, "I'm going to sing, no, I'm now going to, and it's, I counted about 7 and then I gave up.
Other thoughts? Helen, were you leaning forward with intent?
I did have a point, but the second you asked me about it, it completely disappeared. It's senility, I'm afraid. But it's yes, I remembered it. The point at which Mucedorus reveals himself to Amadine is very, very carefully hidden.
Mm.
Because at one point he's the shepherd, and at the next point he's Mucedorus. And he starts talking about Paris and the Grecian queen, which is Mucedorus language rather than shepherd language. The light doth Mucedorus yield. But she's agreed to run off with the shepherd, which is very improper.
Mm.
But it is quite difficult to work out exactly, just as I found it very difficult to work out exactly why Mucedorus was going traveling. I also found it very difficult to work out who Amadine thought she was falling for.
Mm. Yeah. Other thoughts? Sorry, I was looking down, so I don't know if anyone was waving. Alan?
I'm just wondering whether what we're looking at here is a script which has been fairly heavily blue penciled to take out material that was regarded as being surplus to requirements, because there are a number of non sequiturs, like the one that Helen has just referred to, which would make the plot actually understandable. There seem to be an awful lot of time jumps that I just don't follow.
It's interesting. Well, let me... I'll come back to that. Remind me to come back to that. I don't know the within scenes there are time jumps. There may be questions about the overall placement of scenes, but I'm not sure that I felt it within scenes per se. I didn't feel the sense of any lacunas occurring. Though, see if other thoughts.
I'm thinking not necessarily cuts within scenes. I'm thinking the whole scenes may well have been removed because, as Helen said, there is no explanation of how suddenly it's moved from shepherd to Mucedorus.
Well, is it? Does she know by the end of the scene that it is Mucedorus?
Well, he calls himself Mucedorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's a conversation well, I say we, it's mostly me having in chat, is that right up until her penultimate line, she addresses him as shepherd, and then in his penultimate line, he says to her, he refers to himself in third person, and then she says his name back. So one interpretation could be that basically he's just become the shepherd who is called Mucedorus. Great, I know his name now that I've agreed to run away, as opposed to it being, oh, you're that Mucedorus who's like the son of the king of the other place, and oh, you're important. That doesn't seem to have happened as a revelation. It's just, what do you do? I tend sheep. What's your name? George.
Yeah, there is an important actually, because I'll bring it up now. So this, as I say, has a very long textual history, and there are various different editions with different material in it. So what we actually have is this play with more scenes in it than there were originally. So your task, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, midway through the play, is please guess which scenes were added. It's broadly in individual scenes, so it's always delightful to see what you come up with. So throw me a number, Alan.
Without going for scene numbers, I suspect the area that's been bigged up are the comedy double act. In other words, or the alleged comedy double acts, Mouse and Segasto.
So you really don't like the clown, do you?
No,
okay, other thoughts? Anyone else want to pitch a number or a scene that if you can't flick through?
My feeling is there aren't enough scenes, not that there are too many.
Mm. I'm not saying there aren't scenes at some point being removed, but it's interesting that in the textual history we have additional scenes rather than indications of stuff being cut. That doesn't mean that there wasn't stuff removed at an earlier point, but we don't have anything earlier. It's quite consistent actually in terms of a lot of the material, apart from the bonus stuff. Anyone want to make any have a guess? Go on. Flick through. I'll give you to the end of the session, and I'll tell you. We're into extra time, so have a little play. I'll go round the houses. final thoughts on it, and then I'll throw it in for surprise at the end. So, Eric, do you have any final thoughts about the first half of Mucedorus? In fact, probably slightly more than the first half of Mucedorus.
I'm just wondering when they're gonna when Segasto and Mouse are gonna end up killing each other. Because it's like and also why he hired him in the first place. He obviously is very annoyed at him all the time, but so obviously he kind of deserves this idiotic bad luck that he's got. Yeah, it's just kind of like, obviously you've got like the romantic hero Mucedorus, you've got the romance going on, but then you've also got the comedy, and it's like, okay, yeah, I wonder how that's gonna end.
You can't kill the clown. Well, actually, that's not true. We have had one instance where they killed the clown, which was Looking Glass, as I recall, where they actually hanged him at the end of the play. Really disturbing element of that play. But broadly speaking, yeah, you don't kill the clown, but who knows? Maybe they'll kill the clown. They usually just quietly disappear. But then there is another precedent, which I'll come to again in a moment. I've got so many things I want to say. Alan, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure that it's going anywhere I particularly want to follow it as a piece. And I find the clown very unfunny. It almost looks like if it's there as a place hanger for physical business, then fine. But the words just don't amuse at all in my case.
Helen, final thought?
Yeah, I mean, I can cope with the clown. I don't have Alan's problem with the clown. And in fact, as a starter, I'm quite engaged. I'm quite interested in knowing what's going to happen to the lovers, how the baddie's going to get his just desserts, and I have a very positive feeling that this is going to be a comedy.
Excellent. Sascha?
Yeah, I'd say this is going to be a comedy as well, but it's hard to tell the scenes that have been added, though. I've just been having a quick look. Not sure as yet, but we can but see what happens on that score. But on another note, the actual way the text is written is extremely engaging. I've not got a problem with Mouse at all. I actually quite like his interesting dynamic going on there. You don't know which way he's going to flip. That's what I like about that character. And I also love the fact that everything is so seesaw-like. It's like everybody's on edge. And I'm inclined to agree with Helen. I think this is going to be a comedy.
Alexandra, final thoughts?
Well, I like my tragedies, so I hope that it develops into something horrible. No, I don't. What it is I think we've had that kind of comedy and envy toss at the beginning, and the fact that it keeps being brought back. I get the feeling that if written well, that's for a purpose or with a point, and we're going to discover sooner that maybe there's more complexity or there's more kind of struggle or whatever. So I'm looking forward to more bloody gory stuff. But also I really liked discovering that little cue script game scene. And I don't know how I feel about it, but I do know how strongly I recognize the gag of rather than a straight man wise guy kind of comedy duo. I'm reading the Mouse Sargasso interactions a lot more as highly competent villain with incompetent sidekick, a la Disney's Aladdin or something. You get that kind of the annoying parrot that keeps
Yago,
hanging
you
around.
mean?
Right? Sorry?
Yago, you mean?
Yago, yeah. So that's the vibe that I'm getting as an intention here, is that Segasto is a character that would be too serious a villain if he were not accompanied by something ridiculous. If this is a comedy, so let's give him the annoying sidekick. And I actually like Sagasto's journey because I like villains. What's happening to him is he has things at the start and everything gets taken away from him. So it doesn't feel as though he's a villain just because the writing says so. He's got motivation constructed in his first appearances, which makes him rounder and makes the story more interesting as a result.
Excellent. Okay, now that you've had a moment, does anyone want to come on? Someone pick a scene. We've had 8. You've got a slightly above 1 in 8 chance of getting the right scene.
Is it just one scene? Because I thought there were 2 scenes added.
It overlaps into another scene. It's not quite fully new. But if you hit one of them, 50-50 chance.
Is there a prize?
No.
That's what I was wondering.
You're on your own then, mate.
Is it just that you want to be able to prove us wrong?
I genuinely want to know what you think is removable. Or is addable to this. I genuinely to know what within this plot do you feel, or this action could be removed from the play. I find this an interesting exercise, and I might send you away to think about it. But because most of you are back tomorrow, apart from Alexandra, so I could send Alexandra a special message. On that.
I'd argue it's that bit before with the king and Tremelio, because that's not really it doesn't really give us any information about any extra information that we don't already know. But I don't know if that's just me being sort of Tremelio being disposable, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know.
That's scene 3.
I think so.
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, that could go.
Because we were also talking about that bit being sort of in the wrong order, also, so to speak.
Okay. Any other stabs? I'll put you out of your misery. It's the after the induction. It's the first scene into the
Really?
second. Yeah. So in the original construction, they don't know who Mucedorus is.
Ah.
Oh,
The audience don't, unless there's some dialogue that I missed elsewhere in the play. It doesn't even. It starts after Mouse does his opening speech with the bear. So you open the action of the play with Segasto and Amadine being chased by a bear. That's how the play starts.
wow.
And he's just a random dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's a random shepherd.
A random brave dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not set up at all for the audience who he is in the original construction, unless there are other scenes that are missing from even the original printing.
Okay,
That's
that
so
makes
interesting.
That is interesting, and also it actually makes more sense in terms of reveals. I guess, unless there isn't a reveal, in which case.
So when she is told his name, it's just a name. I mean, eventually it will be revealed who he is, probably, perhaps. But at that point, following the original logic, it doesn't matter.
I think they were right to put the scene in.
I can understand if at the end of the play suddenly he's revealed to be a prince, everyone goes, "Oh, really?"
Well, right. I mean, people, they tended not to deceive the audience. Or everybody on the stage is in a pit, in a morass of ignorance, but the audience is supposed to know what's going on.
So it's interesting, an experiment that seems to have failed.
Alexandra looks so happy.
Or maybe
I'm so excited because then it's not just a comedy and envy is involved. It's a mystery as well. And no, actually, I think as an adventure type of story, I think it's a lot more interesting to be revealing things, breadcrumb trailing the audience.
All we need is an island of strange marshes.
Yes.
But the audience does. You've only got to get a large proportion of the audience failing to pick up the crumbs. And I'm good at failing to pick up the crumbs.
But he's just a shepherd getting his love. I mean, what crumb is there to pick up?
Shepherds and princesses don't.
But
mix.
it's love.
Even so, if a princess falls in love with a shepherd, it's always because something within her has divined that he's a prince in disguise. It's one of the rules.
Yeah, he chopped the head off a bear. He's obviously a prince. You know, it's like pulling swords out of stone.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true.
So it's interesting because you'll have noted where. So it doesn't have the first appearance of Mouse. That doesn't happen either. At the very beginning of what we call scene 2. So the thing is, when Mouse comes in later on and does all the stuff about the bear, he's repeating what he's already said. So what we've got is sort of a semi-enacted thing that he then mentions later on. But originally, it was just he related his experience with the bear within the action, and then we get this additional entrance for Mucedorus, for Mouse.
Okay.
So
basically, sorry, I was just going to say, so basically Mouse is this random psycho they found on the street.
Random person.
Yeah.
Well, it's just someone bringing hay for his horse, basically, isn't it? He is just a wandering passing person who just got caught in this bear attack. When bears attack. But it makes sense of the rest of the scene slightly more in the way it's constructed. Because, you know, thinking if you were writing the scene, you wouldn't have, as one scene, you wouldn't have him saying the same stuff twice. But they've obviously felt the need to introduce Mouse as a separate character before the action gets going again after the new introduced first scene. So it's interesting how a play script evolves. I have another cunning theory. I may hold on to it till tomorrow. It involves hanging staves and short people. I'm quite excited. I have an exciting cunning thought in my head, which I'll test with someone tomorrow. But I'm not going to say anything today. We've gone around the room for general thoughts. I'm really loving this. I mean, it's very silly. It is untidy, but it's clearly very populist, and it's designed to be populist and popular. And yes, Mouse is probably excessive, but I think a good clown will make it work. What I see in all of the Mouse dialogue is potential to make that funny. I mean, some of it probably will not land. Some of it is traditional, not very funny clown. But some of those are very well-structured gags, and they're quite nicely played. It's always a matter of looking for potential with comedy, rather than what you immediately read off the page, because what you read off the page is usually hilariously unfunny. So thank you very much to all the readers today. We have made a start on this play, and we're going to get a little bit more deeper into it tomorrow with a very similar but slightly different room. All that remains to say thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.